Hi and welcome to this video on Ajax. So we've looked at a bunch of technologies through the course, predominantly HTML, JavaScript and CSS on the client side. HTML being a markup language for documents, that's the basis of everything. JavaScript being a programming language that runs things on the client, and CSS for styling. On the server, we looked at the programming language PHP, and we looked at MySQL for storage in a database. Ajax is asynchronous JavaScript and XML. It's asynchronous because the idea is that you grab data from the server in the background. So rather than loading a new page by following a link or submitting, the page itself grabs data from the server using JavaScript. So it's client-side JavaScript that's grabbing data from the server. Typically, it gets its data from a dynamic server page, so that's where the PHP comes in. And the idea is that you're grabbing little bits of data, not whole pages, and updating pages without the user being aware that they're changing page, refreshing a page, or yeah. So that's what we're looking at today. We're going to do two videos. My first Ajax is today, and this video I mean, and infinite scrolling we'll look at in the next video, a bit more detail. So in this video, we're going to do my first Ajax. What we're going to do is get a response from the server into an alert on the screen. So we'll click a button on the page and get a response from the server without any reloading. We're going to set a paragraph. We'll then follow that up by setting a paragraph's content on the page from the website. As is typical with Ajax, there's going to be two pages. You're going to have a parent page. That's the page that the user is loading. That's the main HTML page, which of course could be generated by PHP, it doesn't matter. That's where the JavaScript lives that's grabbing the data in the parent page. The child page is not normally a fully formed HTML document. It's usually just some data. It could be snippets of HTML, it could be XML, which was the original purpose of Ajax, or it could be JSON, which is another markup language for data. It's typically data rather than full content. And that's the child page, okay? And it's normally dynamically produced. Wikipedia has actually got a really good page on all this. So if we look here, the Wikipedia page on Ajax has got a nice background history of it, talks about all the connected technologies, and then it's got some really good examples that I'm going to beg, steal and borrow. So into NetBeans, we create a new HTML file called Ajax1. And I'm going to create a server-side equivalent of the file, which is PHP. I'm going to call that Ajax1. Okay. So in ajax1.html, that's the client page. Okay. So in here, I'm going to add some JavaScript. So let's just change the title, because we'll get this over with. My first Ajax. Okay, so I'll do the full shebang here. I'll add a header. First Ajax. Let's have some script here. Oops. And into that script, I'm going to paste the client-side code from over here, and then I'll work through that. Okay, so there's two bits. There's the client side and there's the server side. Grabbing the client side, paste it in, indent it better, and then we can work through it. So what this does is, and it's actually a good idea to wrap all this in a function. So I'm going to call it doAjax, so that it's not called when the page is being loaded, but it's called whenever I call that function. So this is a client-side script. We should attribute Wikipedia. So you initialize, you get an HTTP request object, okay, called XHR. Okay, you open that for an address. That's not the one we want AJAX1. So that's the child page. So ajax1.php is our child page. That's the page that we're trying to dynamically load in the background. Then you've got a onReady state change. It's a clever bit of JavaScript. That's an attribute of the XHR, and it's a function, and it's that function that is called whenever the data is loaded. So whenever it's finished, so it's asynchronous, so it is off in the background, grabs the data, and once it's finished, it calls a function. And that function is defined in onReady state. And here, Wikipedia is just declaring an inline function. So that's an inline function definition of an anonymous function that we stick into onReady state changed. There's a couple of status variables we get. So we get done and OK. Okay, so we can check if the ready state is done, so the page is finished loading. If the status is OK, this is where we do our main work. Okay, so I'll change that to okay. Or we could alert with an error if something goes wrong. Okay. Sometimes this function is called with different states happening, so it's worth just checking that it's done, it's not started or anything. And then after we've set it up, you actually do the send here, and that's when the background asynchronous loading starts. So down on my page, I'm going to add a button. I'm going to give it a name. No, how do you do buttons? I think it's in between the tags, isn't it? So on click, I want you to call do Ajax. And end the button, and we'll call it Ajax. Okay, so let's load that page. Twink. So that's the index. It's ajax1.html. Okay. So there's our page. We've got our header 1, we've got our button. If you view the page source, there's exactly what we'd expect. Okay, so the Ajax is here in the function, and that's only the content of the page there is the H1 and the click. Okay, so we need to write this chap, the child page. If we go back to Wikipedia, child content is typically very simple. And again, we should attribute that. Okay, first line here is you set the content type. This affects the transfer, so I'm saying it's a plain text document. Okay, that's a normal response from an Ajax call. Normally it's text you're sending. If you remember, there are still hangovers of different operating systems treating carriage returns differently. So that says it's plain text. So if you get a new line and you expect a carriage return, then it will do changes and stuff. So you're saying it's a text document, a text transfer is fine. If you're transferring images, you would say it's an image document. That's the MIME type of the object. And it just helps the transfer and the browser deal with the object when it comes in. And our text is then sent through echoes. Or you could just send it as plain text by typing it outside the PHP. It doesn't matter. It just, instead of sending back HTML though, we're probably sending back data or plain text. Okay, you can send HTML if you want them. So that is what gets sent back. So if I load that page over here, it just comes through as plain text, and it says this is the return text. And if you view the page source, that's all that's on it. Okay, but that's not what we want to do. What we want to do is load it dynamically. There you go. So what happened there? In your Chrome, if you open up the debugging options, you actually have to turn this on. So there's an add network throttling option in the debug options. So in the debug options, you can set different sizes of display. Okay, so you can set this up for different phones or tablets or for a laptop. I've set it here for a laptop, so it's a big screen. Okay. And yeah, you can change different attributes here. But the main thing is you can set, for us, is you can set the speed of loading. So if I turn this right down to GPRS, we might see the page loading. And in particular over here, you've got different tabs. So far we've been using the console and the elements tab. There's a network tab, and that shows you how the page is loading. So if I hit refresh, you see that we very quickly load Ajax 1.html. Oh, and a Chrome extension is loaded as well. We'll allow that. The Ajax 1.html has loaded. I then hit when I hit this, you'll see Ajax 1.php appear here because it's having to load that file. Okay. And once it's loaded, you get the text displayed on screen. Okay. So that's just a way of showing that it's not loaded before you press the button. Then when you press the button, do Ajax is called, and do Ajax sets up the HTTP response, sends off the order, and when the order comes back, it puts up an alert on the screen. Okay, so can we change an element on the page instead? I'm going to add a paragraph called dynamic, set it to empty. Okay, so just an empty paragraph. And then up here, instead of doing that, we can do document.get element by ID, dynamic dot, and what you actually do is you just set its inner HTML to the xhr.response text. Save that, reload the page. I'm going to hide the developers options, hit do Ajax, and that bit's filled in automatically. And if you look at the page source now, you see because Chrome loads the page again when it's asked for the source, the paragraph is empty. Okay, but if you look at the developer console, look at the elements, you can see that that paragraph has content in it. Okay. And that's us. Very simple. MyFirst AJAX. Book's got tons on Ajax, chapter 17. Next time, I'll look at infinite scrolling, a more dynamic and exciting use of Ajax.